I think.
Okay.
So, like, my synopsis of it is Odysseus, Matt Damon, takes the long way home back to Ithaca.
Yeah. And on the other side of things, we get his son, Telemachus, Tom Holland, as he navigates a difficult political situation kind of created by the absence of Odysseus. Mm-hmm. So those kind of twin plots we follow till they converge at the end.
It being an epic, for me, truly felt epic. And having a movie based off of an epic does not inherently mean that movie itself is going to be epic.
I agree.
But I thought in terms of scale, in terms of the unique soundtrack, in terms of like the overall cast, everybody showed up and it truly felt like an epic.
I agree. To kind of hit on that, I think there were some extremely strong performances in this movie. I think there were mostly great visual effects throughout. I really enjoyed the sound design. I would be surprised if this wasn't a front runner for that Oscar in the spring. The score was great, and something that I appreciated as a person who's read the Odyssey was just how much thematic cohesion the script ended up having, because in the original book, you do have a bit of this villain of the week flavor of,
it's episodic.
Yeah, it is very episodic. He did this, he did that, he did this. And that's still present in this movie, but it's much more cohesive than it is in the original book.
Yeah. I thought some of the things that took me out, so it's not a perfect movie. There's never going to be a perfect movie.
I agree.
But some of the things that took me out a little bit was some of the dialogue choices.
Dad is coming home.
Let's go!
Mm-hmm. The kind of going with the dialogue, some of the sound mixing, the audio mixing was hard to hear.
That's
part of that could be the IMAX cameras.
And that's a problem with all Christopher Nolan movies.
Yeah, there were some parts that were just a little hard to hear. Some parts we heard a lot of.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in the spoiler side. Some of the fight choreography I felt was lacking for me. I actually thought one of the biggest hindrances to this movie was actually not even when the movie began, but before, on the promotion.
The trailers, your posters.
It did not do the movie justice.
I agree completely. And I ordinarily don't like to hold that against a movie because I don't necessarily always think it's the movie's fault. But this was a real victim of that.
Yes.
I feel like the pacing was a little weird at times. The middle of the movie dragged for me a bit. And the editing right at the beginning of the movie was a bit weird. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and we'll get into it later, but just the first 20 minutes or so, there's a bit of a rhythm to this movie you need to learn before you can get into it, which is a bit of a high cost for entry for a movie as long as The Odyssey is.
I think it's asleep.
Oh, now, spoiler talk.
That's right. So, I wrote out a fairly significant summary here. I don't think we need to go over everything.
I don't think so either. I actually kind of wrote nothing.
That's fair.
So,
well, you can see which one of us takes notes here.
yes.
Well,
so let's just jump straight into what we thought worked about the movie and didn't.
Yeah.
One of the first big set pieces we get in this movie is Polyphemus. That's the Cyclops. Now, in the original story, Polyphemus has a bit more dialogue than he does in this movie. In this movie, he's almost more just an animal, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
We interact with him a little bit, and the thing that really stands out to me about Polyphemus is the sound design.
That was one of the... I wasn't expecting it.
No.
We were sitting in... So we saw at the AMC the Dolby...
The IMAX Dolby Theater.
Not quite IMAX, but the best that we could go to.
Right.
And until then, we're trying to strain our ears a little bit on extracting what the dialogue was. As soon as they plunge that heated log into the Cyclops' eye and he screams, that was to date, in terms of dynamics, going from just absolute quiet to him screaming, and it literally, I felt the rumble in our seat. And we weren't even center. We had to be off to the side.
Yeah, it was loud. It was really cool sound design, though. I've not really heard a scream like that
No,
before.
It was very unique. It kind of reminded me a little bit in like the 2019 Joker when Joaquin Phoenix shoots the 3 guys in the subway or whatever. The whole movie up to that point wasn't super loud, and you felt those gunshots.
Oh, it hits you. Yeah.
Having that contrast makes it even more. And we get that a little bit later on the thunderstorm scene.
Yes,
brings it all right back. But no, you're absolutely right. That was one of my highlights. One of the things that was off on that particular scene was the fact that Odysseus didn't say, "My name
is nobody." Nobody.
You know, and I've seen a lot of videos out there being like, okay, that was like a key scene for the Odyssey to show just how smart Odysseus is. Because up until that point, we get that he has the respect of his men. We get the fact that he, being the king, is a great leader. But that was one of the moments. I never read the book, but one of my favorite miniseries is that 1997 Odyssey. And they had that moment in there, and that's just one way to solidify, like, okay, Odysseus isn't the strongest person. He's not the most powerful, but he is by far the smartest.
Right over it.
That kind of plays into him having his own power, his own agency over the gods.
I agree.
And it was downplayed here, and I'm kind of surprised by that.
I think that was an intentional thematic choice. We'll get into it a little bit later. Another one for me was Circe, the witch who transformed some of Odysseus's men into pigs.
Yeah.
It was a very fun moment in the movie because up to that point, although we'd had some supernatural things, it was all within the realm of being mostly drama-based. This was a moment of just body horror.
Yes.
And I'm not sure exactly where the practical effects ended and the CGI began with that. But
I almost am wondering if it was all practical.
It
because
may have been.
It was shot in a way where it looked like she was elongating like the snouts for the pigs, but the movement and I'm guessing the prosthetics made it look like that. And I'm guessing very, very little of that was actually CG.
I agree. It was very impressive.
It was seamless if there was any CG.
The other one that really stands out for me, and I have others here, but the big thing that super stands out for me is the scene where Odysseus goes to Hades and speaks to the dead. He only speaks to 2 people. He speaks to Sinon, I think is how they say
yes.
it.
Who I believe is an original character.
No.
It's not?
Kind of.
Okay.
So, sorry.
No.
Did research here. The
wasn't in the 1997.
No, because he's not in the book The Odyssey. However, he is a historical fiction character that's existed for almost as long.
Okay.
So are you familiar with the Aeneid? What it is that it is basically the Roman version of the Odyssey. A Trojan soldier escapes from Troy, tries to get home, eventually is part of the founding of Rome. That's Aeneas. And the thing about the Aeneid is that it's a little bit more focused on the cost of war, the way the Odyssey is, or the movie The Odyssey is. And I think that was a smart choice to bring a character from the Aeneid over.
That's interesting.
Sinon is a Trojan soldier in the Aeneid who turns coat and works with the Greeks at the end. And I think for what they were doing in this story, it made sense to change Sinon to just being a Greek soldier. Robert Pattinson's character is Antinous, by the way. Antinous...
He plays him great.
He does. We'll get to that in performances. But he switches his draft with Sinon. And of course, Sinon pays the ultimate price. He's one of the first deaths in the invasion of Troy. Because
he's the one who starts it.
Yeah, they base him as kind of a little dummy to tell the Trojan soldiers that the horse is, you know what the horse is. Tells them that the horse is a gift for Athena. They bring it in, they do the Trojan horse thing, you know. And Sinon's one of the first deaths. I think it's very meaningful that Sinon is the soldier that Odysseus speaks to. And I think it's very meaningful, too, that we kind of get these references throughout the story of Agamemnon, who's the overall king of Greece.
The aura farming king.
Yeah, that dude's awesome. I don't care that the poster looked dumb.
I don't think it looked dumb. His presence was epic. I didn't know it was the guy who played Bowser Jr.
Yeah, Benny Safdie was an interesting choice.
I think it was interesting, though. The silhouette of him was
incredible.
epic. It was perfect. I thought it was hilarious as soon as he spoke. I was like,
Odysseus.
it's like, is that your voice?
Yeah.
And then when I found out who it was, you see his face, and he's like a handsome guy, but he does not look
doesn't
like the
have that
silhouette.
aura. No.
And so it was interesting of Christopher Nolan choosing to always hide his face, which I think just makes him that even bigger presence in the room.
Despite the fact that his voice is that way.
Yeah, that was interesting. It almost was like a Darth Vader. Who was the guy who actually played Darth Vader?
David Prowse, a Scotsman.
And then you have
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones' voice, and it's like you almost needed that a little bit.
Have you seen those clips of David Prowse doing Darth Vader's voice on set?
Where are the rebels?
Take it apart. I want her alive. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
But I think that was almost intentional in this, because Agamemnon at the end of it is kind of a pathetic character, because we get this moment. It's hinted to the whole time, and I'm going to call it the original sin of the Trojan War, where Agamemnon,
Which is then echoed with
with Sinon.
yes.
Agamemnon sacrifices his daughter for favorable winds, which is in the Odyssey. And of course he pays the price for it. His wife, Clytemnestra, kills him.
Which, by the way, we were in the theater when that happened, and there was that, again, the dynamics of the volume.
Where she leaps.
Where she goes and stabs him. Addison literally jumped back.
I did.
And it was almost like in Logan, in that limousine scene. That was the last time you jumped back that far.
Come on, dude. So, in any case, Clytemnestra kills Agamemnon. He pays the price for his sin. And you're right, we do get that kind of mirrored with Odysseus and Sinon. He tricks Sinon. He uses him as a patsy to take the fall for this thing. And Sinon holds him to task for it. He says, hey, you didn't have to do this, but you chose to. And I think it's meaningful. The only other person that Odysseus talks to is Agamemnon, warning him that he's about to suffer the consequences for his actions, which is pretty much what the rest of the movie is. Mm-hmm. So I thought the Hades scene was really cool.
It was awesome. Again, we get into the practical effects of everything. Having the extras, which I think saying extras is not a good enough terminology, because these people were literally buried.
Yeah.
And
coming out of the ground.
That whole scene was awesome. It was an interesting difference between Nolan's portrayal of hell versus what I'm familiar with in the 1997 version of the Odyssey. The way the 1997 Odyssey felt was more like a fairy tale.
Yeah, I agree.
Where this felt like a modern day dark fantasy.
I agree.
And the two portrayals of hell really show that. In the 1997, you have Christopher Lee being like, "Oh, Odysseus!
You and all with you will be swallowed by a force."
In what everybody, I think of hell in my head of like the fire and brimstone, everything coming down, where this is just a very subtle, pretty much just island that is dark. You don't want to be there. And you almost get the sense that it's maybe in between.
I think so, yeah.
The in-between realm. But I thought that portrayal of hell was really interesting.
I thought so.
Love the practical effects. Mm-hmm. Still surprised by Agamemnon's voice.
Yeah, it kind of works, but it kind of doesn't. But one of the things I thought was very interesting about this movie was that I think Odysseus is robbed a little bit of his intelligence in this adaptation.
Yeah.
And I think the reason is to highlight the brutality of what's actually happening in the story. Because that theme of brutality and violating Zeus's law, it comes up again and again. The original book is a little more celebratory in tone. Mm-hmm. It's very much, this is the great thing Odysseus did. This is how smart Odysseus is. This is how Odysseus gets out of this and that. And I think this is more a story about, this is what you've done in the name of war, and here is the consequence of that action.
Bringing vengeance. Bringing it all.
So later in the movie, after we've gone to Hades, spoken to the dead soldiers, he's faced with the decision you get in the book between going in the whirlpool or messing with Scylla, the serpent who would take people from the boat. Now, in the original book, I'm not sure if you'd be familiar with this or not, Odysseus basically goes between them. He doesn't choose. Yeah. And in this...
That's part of him trying to defy the gods.
It is. In this version of the story, he doesn't do that. Mm-mm. He allows his ship to choose interacting with Scylla, basically by using reverse psychology. He says he wants to do the whirlpool. They go for Scylla. 6 of them are taken just as the Shade said would happen. And then they confront him. They say, hey, you knew that was going to happen. And that's a much more ruthless kind of intelligence than I think exists in the original book. It's very in line with this portrayal of Odysseus.
It plays in with the fact of the cost of war and the cost of human choice. And
I think that's a huge theme in the movie. I think that was one of the choices I really liked that they changed, was that I think that works really well with the themes they were exploring.
Overall, the original telling, I say the original, the 1997 that I'm exposed to,
yes,
was very much Odysseus wanting to be better than the gods, being above the gods. That telling of it was more, hey, it's very grounded in religion. We need the gods. We're their creation. A man, no matter if he's a king, no matter if he's the smartest person in the world, has to rely on the gods. That was where this one, you really don't get that sense.
No.
You have Athena showing up, which Athena turns out played by Zendaya. Athena turns out to be one of Athena's priestesses.
Yeah, priestesses.
It was essentially Odysseus having PTSD. This telling of it, I feel like is much more human consequence. Is very relevant for today.
I agree.
We have a lot of, I don't want to get political, but
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water.
A lot of wars going on in the world, and it's like, okay, this movie shows the cost of that.
I agree. I think that every decision he makes to some degree is built in that
versus
way.
Going against the gods.
And we can kind of have the discussion of if that was a good choice or not, but I think for what he's going for, I think it's a very effective way to do it.
Yeah.
I thought some other standouts were the actual scene of the invasion of Troy. That was probably like the most... It's interesting because it's one of the most like emotionally effective scenes, because you have that score just building and building and building as you watch Matt Damon realize the horror of what he has kind of unleashed.
That was one of my favorite things that Christopher Nolan did, was, the movie opens up with everybody's favorite rapper, Travis Scott, who is very skillfully, he's going to win an Oscar for tapping his stick down and gathering. You could tell everybody in that great hall was rallying with what Travis Scott was saying. There is a song about Troy.
It was something.
That was an interesting way to open the movie. We just watched Disclosure Day as well. They both have interesting openings of Disclosure Day having the wrestling match, and
this just having Travis
the
Scott.
Odyssey opening with Travis Scott banging a stick. One of my favorite openings about that was you had the Trojan horse. You had really quick snippets of the opening the gates, the invasion into Troy.
But you don't
get that until the end, and I think that's a huge payoff, and it works. I think it sticks the landing there.
It really hits exactly what the movie's going for. I agree. But that's a great scene. Let's go! The movie doesn't bat 1,000. They do the Lystragonians, which are the man-eating giants, and in the original story, they're a bit more tricksters, I guess. And they kind of invite them in and then start eating them. And the cost is even higher in the book, because Odysseus has 12 ships worth of men, and 11 of them are wrecked by the Lystragonians. Here, they're kind of just like video game goons.
So I want to get to the video game things later. That's not the only instance of a video game that I felt in this movie.
I agree, but that's one of the big ones. They look like guys you'd fight in the first level of God of War. You could have cut the Lystragonians and nothing is lost. Scylla, the beast that takes the guys, I like that they almost made it like rock shaded, so it was this weird kind of unknowable shape. It wasn't really scary, though.
It was very H.P. Lovecraft feel of like the unknowable shape.
And that's what it is in the book, too, but I just wasn't crazy about the design they settled on.
It was almost one of the things of you get more out of it by showing less of it, and they think they showed a little too much.
I agree.
And that was one of the most standout CGI things. When everything else is practical,
The CGI stands out.
the CGI stands out. There was that and the deer he shot on the island with.
That turned into the cheeked up guy.
Yeah. So that was funny on that scene when Odysseus goes into what's her name? The
Cersei's,
witch.
Yeah, Cersei's house.
Cersei's house, and she's like, "Oh, take one of these pigs to slaughter." It's like, does she know that they turn back into humans when they're killed? Because Odysseus, there's this deer. Basically,
oh, you're right.
You have his men that are still alive are like, "Hey, this isn't a mutiny, but you got to leave. You got to be away from us." And Odysseus is like, "Oh, okay, I'll just do my own thing." They go have that epic scene of where they get turned into pigs. He sees this deer. He snipes the deer. It falls dead. He goes to pick it up, and you just see this guy's butt hanging in the air, just completely dead. Hop back into when he meets Cersei. She's like, "Oh, take one of these pigs, which are his men, slaughter it for your dinner." It's like, okay,
he would know.
You would slaughter it, and it would turn into a guy. And plus, doesn't she need him to eat the meat to get turned into creation? I just thought that was interesting.
A little clunky. Yeah, there's some clunky script moments. One other thing I thought wasn't hit as well as it could have been, the siren scene. There's a lot I like about it, but I wish that it had been a little more. I think Odysseus talks about it, and that's cool.
Yes.
But this is one of the only parts of the movie where I'm not crazy about Matt Damon's performance. We'll get to that in a minute. But
I really liked him in that instance. So you and I kind of have a little hit back and forth on the parts that we thought Matt Damon did too much of, like the Matt Damon.
Yeah.
But I really liked that siren because he was going crazy.
I almost wish we got more.
I do too. If we could have that moment to sit and digest. That was one of the hard things of the movie is you go from one epic thing to the next, and there's very little room to just breathe and
kind
process.
Of a pacing problem.
Yeah. One of the biggest problems I had with the movie, so there's a couple. One is the promotions, which we hinted at in the beginning of the video.
I agree.
The other is the very ending of the movie, not the ending scene, the very ending. So to go into the promotions first, you have the huge controversy leading up to the movie of Christopher Nolan's casting choices, and I'm of the mind where it is an epic fantasy tale. It's just that, it's a fantasy. So if an adapter has every right to cast who he wants to, whatever. I'm fine with that. Promotion-wise, it made the obvious controversial castings almost at the center when they're barely in the movie.
Yeah.
So you have, Elliot Page as Sinon, which, for the longest time, everybody thought Elliot Page was going to play Achilles.
Yeah.
And that was a huge controversy. Then you have Helen of Troy by
Lupita Nyong'o.
Which, honestly,
I like
both of them showed up.
Yeah, they did great.
And I think if there's a balance because you want to promote your actors in the film, but the way the promotion did it was almost like, hey, here's the controversy.
I agree.
Versus here's the Odyssey.
I agree.
And I think that turned a lot of people off to this movie and put a bad taste in their mouths even before they showed up to the theater. Where if you sit down and watch it, it was great.
It was, yeah. It's not the first time he's done that kind of thing. He put Harry Styles in Dunkirk, and of course Harry Styles is a little more present in the movie than Elliot Page is in the Odyssey, but I feel like he was very front and center in the marketing of like, hey, look, it's Harry Styles. And to me, that doesn't feel like something that I believe Christopher Nolan would do. That feels very much like the
production company. Yeah, the studio. Yeah. I think it was a really poor choice.
I think so.
And it turned a lot of people off to what an otherwise is a great movie.
I agree.
And that just goes to show you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. No. Actually go and see the movie. But the promotion didn't do it any favors.
And the other part you didn't like was Fiend.
Oh my goodness.
Fiend.
So
Fiend.
it's like this. You're going off on this beautiful bike ride.
I agree.
You have the clouds. It's like a sunset. You're riding. It is the best bike ride. Perfect temperature. You know, you maybe have a couple bumps in the road, but otherwise, it is just the perfect.
Yep.
One of the best bike rides you've ever been on. And then you get off your bike and wreck yourself.
Yep.
That's how why in the world, and this is, I feel like a Nolan choice. The ending credits to a movie, especially a movie like The Odyssey, you have the very final scene, which I loved.
Yeah.
You have Odysseus finally with Penelope. Very well-earned reunion.
Yeah.
And they finally get to be on that boat. He gets to go basically atone for his sins, the way he mistreated everybody. And then you have Travis
Fiend,
Scott.
Fiend,
Oh my goodness.
Fiend,
it was
Fiend,
awful.
Fiend.
It was, notice the gigantic forehead.
Next time you look at a picture of him.
A movie like that, I think of Batman 1989.
Yeah.
Where you have Batman ending on the top of a building. You have the bat signal in there. It fades to black, and then you have the da 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 da, and then it crescendos into the Batman theme.
I agree.
Why in the world would you have the metaphorically racking of yourself with Travis Scott on the credits? It was like, instead of wanting to sit there and just be like, wow, that was an epic movie.
Yeah.
We wanted to get out of there and not listen to that song.
Well, and I think that it's an interesting thing because Nolan kind of did an interview about why he put Travis Scott in the movie, and I think he actually has a point. There is kind of an interesting through line between rap and like the oral tradition that he was trying to harken to.
I think he's reading too much into that.
I don't think so. I think there's something there. I just don't think it should have been Travis Scott.
I don't think for something that's too much of a juxtaposition for me. For the Odyssey, why would you bring back all those essentially dead instruments, have an awesome musical score, and it's too much of a juxtaposition, and it did not work at all.
I think a different rapper could have made it work. I think if you put an A$AP Rocky in there, it works.
I still don't think a rap song. I think for me,
That's fair.
It would have to be the traditional instruments.
Well, maybe something like Kendrick Lamar's "For Free" interlude then.
Right.
Which is legitimate dead instruments, jazz score, something like that. A$AP Rocky had a song like that on his new album with Doechii. It was really good. I think that there's room for something like that. I just think Travis Scott, he's Travis Scott. He hasn't made a good song since Astroworld.
It would be interesting to see other edits of the credits. It did not work. It was that left a sour taste in my mouth.
I agree.
One of the other video game things that I wanted to bring up was the very end battle, and that kind of goes into the battle choreography.
Yeah.
You have Matt Damon picking up a spear and spinning around while 10 guys are standing around him who could have easily attacked him. The choreography, so when they were in the Temple of Athena, you have the Troy scenes, which are awesome. You have the Temple of Athena scene when Odysseus finally gets to meet his son, and there's those assassins about to kill him. You know, Odysseus does that quick snap, and the guy's sword goes into his throat. I thought that was awesome.
I agree.
Then to have the most video gamey feel fight scene I've ever seen of you have Odysseus taking on 15 people against one, which is cool if you do it right. You know, there's like the John Wick way,
Yeah.
and then you have Matt Damon spinning way. It didn't take me out of the movie. It just wasn't the best.
Threatened to.
And then at the same time, you have Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Holland.
Not Loki. You have Tom Holland up fighting just that one random guy.
And
he couldn't even do it.
Well,
and meanwhile, the random guy was throwing down weapons. It was exactly like in Arkham, the Arkham games, when you're like fighting Bane, and there's the henchman that falls down, or you have some of the henchmen get into the gun box and throw weapons to the other henchmen. And then it also reminds me of in Avengers with Captain America fighting that one Hydra agent on the SHIELD helicarrier.
Yes.
He's like a super soldier, and he can't take down one. He doesn't even take him down. It's Iron Man who comes in and gets him. But it felt very much like that to me. One thing that I didn't realize because I had the knowledge from the Odyssey from the 1997 series going into it was I kind of got who all the characters were.
Sure.
And their purpose. And I was surprised to hear, because I don't have that fresh perspective of not having been exposed to the Odyssey before, that some people who came into it not knowing the story were confused on who some of the people were. They didn't know who Calypso was.
Sure.
And from my point of view, I realized that that was essentially like this immortal, almost goddess, where Odysseus kind of crashed on her salt island, and she took care of him, and we get a little bit of that. But I think from an outsider's perspective, they would probably be completely confused. I don't know if they ever even call her Calypso. They probably call her Calypso in the movie, but
but
I don't think the average person would know exactly who that is. So
I do think the movie assumes a level of familiarity with the material,
which is not bad. It's just it's something that you have to get used to with this movie. I think it's better to have a perspective of what the Odyssey is going into it. Otherwise, I can understand the confusion.
Sometimes Christopher Nolan reminds me, this is like a take that will probably get us both crucified, so get those ready. He reminds me a little bit of J.J. Abrams in some ways. And J.J. Abrams, I don't know if you've read a lot of his storytelling philosophy. He has that mystery box thing he likes to do where he asks a question and the answer to that question inspires a second question and so on and so forth. It's an interesting way of telling stories, but I think sometimes, and I think Nolan falls into the same trap, not so much in this movie, but in his general filmography, I think you run into a problem with that sometimes where the question becomes the point of the story, and you lose sight of the characters and what's actually happening on a human level.
Yes.
I had one more con, and it's kind of goes into our technical stuff, so I'll kind of touch it here, and then we can do more later. I felt, now of course we can debate the IMAX thing. Is it even like, I don't want to say ethical, but I'll say that for the sake of it. Is it even ethical to shoot a movie such that 90% of the people that watch it are not going to be able to experience the movie, basically?
The way it was intended.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to experience it the way it's intended if you don't have access to an IMAX theater.
Which there's like only 26 IMAX theaters that like actually do the full IMAX or something.
So it's like, in some ways, why would we care? Why would we want that to be something he spends his time doing if most people are never going to be able to experience it the correct way? And the other side of that is I think his direction suffered a little bit because of the cameras. Because the cameras are so big and they're so unwieldy that there are certain shots in the movie. A great one, I'm not going to talk about the Troy sacking. I think the Troy sacking was shot perfectly. But there's other scenes, like when they fight the Lystragonians, where it feels to me like the camera should have been more nimble. It should have moved more freely around the action, and it couldn't because it's, a 2-ton camera or something.
You had to have 6 people move in unison to get the movements that you'd rarely be able to otherwise.
Yeah, movements you could do with one person, 2 people maybe, requires so much effort now. There's a couple of very impressive moving camera shots in there, but they're very slow, they're very unwieldy, and I think Nolan's directing style got a little boxed in.
No one could stand between me and home.
One of my biggest praises of the movie is I love going out of a movie feeling like you have a call to action.
Yes. And
this movie, besides the credits, ends on that awesome call to action of I want to be a better person. I love that last shot of sailing, west into the sun that they planned
for your sins.
They planned for 20 years, carrying that weight, and then getting to that last, pass the baton onto his son to be king, sailing into the sunset with Penelope. I love that call to action. Again, it gets hindered by
Travis
Scott.
I won't do Fiend again.
But it was I truly got that sense of, okay, I want to leave this theater being better.
I agree, yeah. It reminds me a little bit of the call to action after Chunky Boy's Big Day.
I think I missed that one.
Yeah, it's the new Stanley Kubrick movie. They brought him back.
They resurrected Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah. They brought him back. He made a movie called Chunky Boy's Big Day, and it ends with Chunky Boy staring at the camera, and he says, "Steal from your local Kroger."
Dude, if it's a Kubrick movie, I'd go see it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Kind of actually in line with that, Nolan also reminds me a little bit of Kubrick in that I think Kubrick sometimes was a little idiosyncratic for his own good. Sometimes the movies he made suffered a little bit under the weight of his own ambitions, I guess, for what the art of filmmaking can be. Like, I think The Shining is like a perfect movie, but I also think like you could watch The Shining and leave it being like, wow, that was a really well-directed mess. It was completely incomprehensible. And I think that's a reasonable take.
I think from that standpoint, it was intentional. Whereas the Odyssey, if you leave feeling it was a mess, I feel like it was more unintentional.
I would agree.
I get your comparison on Kubrick's strive for perfection.
Yes.
And Nolan's strive for technical perfection.
It's a different kind of perfection.
Yeah.
But there is this almost, to borrow from mythology, we say like Icarus kind of thing. At what point do you hit...
You fly too close to the sun.
You fly too close to the sun, you're being too detail-oriented, and the movie suffers as a result. You know, a lot of movies are better because of the imperfections. Like,
Yeah.
This is a stupid one, but like Star Wars, that stormtrooper that bangs his head on the wall.
Oh, that's
That's
so
great.
good.
I'm so glad that
Yeah.
they didn't take it out of the movie.
Not only did they not take it
They
out,
put a
but
little
they
sound effect,
added, they emphasized it a little bit.
But, I mean, I do think it was a well-directed movie.
I think that contrast there is funny because where Kubrick would do scenes literally hundreds of times with Nolan's constraints, he could only film like 3 minutes at a time before the memory on the IMAX camera ran out.
Which is like that's so limiting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
could you imagine? Like, that would suck. That would be the worst.
I think for like the actors, the constant stopping. Yeah.
Tom Holland said that was a real adjustment period for
Right.
him because Marvel would just flick on the cameras all day and just leave them.
Right.
And they just do whatever. But like Nolan, it's like those minutes the camera's on are extremely
It's crucial.
precious. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about Nolan and his gigantic forehead?
I never noticed a gigantic forehead.
Next time you look at a picture of him, my boy is chopped.
All right. I don't have too much room to make fun, but
You're wearing a hat. He just goes out there going, oh, yes,
That's
I
true.
want to talk about the movie. Anything else you want to say about him?
nope.
I had a lot of performances I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about. I think we've hit some of them. We've kind of talked a little bit about our disagreement on Matt Damon.
Yes.
I want to hit that in a minute, but I want to spend some time praising some folks we've not hit on too much so far. We've talked about Elliot Page. I think Elliot Page really carries his weight as Sinon. I think it's a very memorable performance. I think it's a very memorable role. And I think that he really stands out when he's dead.
Yeah. So that's where we go back into the controversy a little bit of if the promotions didn't put that
much
focus on it, I think that the portrayal of the character would have felt way more natural.
I agree.
Versus it was almost felt more shoehorned in, not because it actually was in reality, but because the setup was like that.
I agree. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Elliot Page did not just go on set and Elliot Page went out and had a really solid performance.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's sad that
The performance
it could get hung up, overshadowed by
sure.
controversy.
And it's a shame. It's not a big role, but it's my favorite performance from Elliot Page since Juno, which was a really great movie. I don't know. Have you seen Juno?
I haven't seen that actually.
It's very, very good. You should go watch it right now. Call to action. So yeah, I thought Elliot Page really carried that role, although, again, I agree, a little overshadowed by circumstances. 2 performances I think pretty much everybody walked out loving. Anne Hathaway as Penelope and Robert Pattinson as Antinous. We've not talked about Penelope very much yet. She's the wife of Odysseus, of course. She's the mother of Telemachus as well. And we see her in this Her leadership role with Telemachus, really kind of scolding him for some of his more immature things. We see kind of the fortitude she has as she waits for her husband and waits for her husband. And we especially have this really great scene between her and Odysseus at the end of the movie where he kind of confesses to her almost the depths of the depravity of what he's been through. And this is just a powerhouse performance from Anne Hathaway.
You and I were talking earlier. I don't think there's ever been a bad performance I've seen her in.
She's got one of the highest batting averages in Hollywood.
I wish we had more time with her. It's hard to say you want more time in a 3-hour movie before you really stretch that limit. Mm-hmm. One of the things I really liked about the 1997 Odyssey was you had the Penelope more in the daily life, not just where Anne Hathaway's Penelope was very much confined to that position, which I think was intentional. It's showing that she's barricaded in the walls of her own kingdom. But I love the 1997 where Penelope would like run out to the ocean and be like, "Oh, my Odysseus is coming!" You know, it's Penelope's character in Nolan's film was more limited. And Anne Hathaway did great with what she had. Mm-hmm. I think it was more flat compared to the 1997 version.
I think it was more flat, but I think it's a very textured performance with a lot going on under the surface. And I think that's what you get with just a veteran actor like Hathaway, especially a collaborator with Nolan like that. Mm-hmm. Because with Nolan's scripts, a lot of the time you don't get much direct characterization. And a lot of what is brought to the table is what the actors bring to the table. Mm-hmm. You know, I think Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne in the Batman movies, I don't care for him that much as Batman, but as Bruce Wayne, he brings a lot to that role that isn't really present in the script. Mm-hmm. And I think she does that very well here. Somebody who's served extremely well by the script is Robert Pattinson as Antinous. I mean, he's almost the third lead of the movie. We kind of see him as the face of the suitors trying to woo Penelope. He's got this relationship going with Mia Goth from X and Pearl and Frankenstein. And
I think Mia Goth was the perfect choice for that role.
I agree.
Because as soon as you see Mia Goth, you know that she's going against Anne Hathaway, almost like Robert Pattinson, just being that scummy person.
Oh, they're both slimy.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
That scene at the end where Odysseus is fighting everybody, the video game thing, and you just see Odysseus peeking behind the tree. Go grab that arrow, boys! The swords, use them! It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's tremendous work from him.
They both were great. You were saying you like Tom Holland's performances more in like Spider-Man. I thought for me, Tom Holland did great.
He did well.
For somebody like Tom Holland who he doesn't have much exposure compared to the other actors that are in this.
Not in like this kind of movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I came out of leaving thinking he did way better than I thought he would.
I agree, but I think, just as an example, any scene he had with Anne Hathaway, it was like, oh, all right. I think there was more going on under the surface he could have tapped into and didn't. It also took me out of it because his hair looked... Did you ever watch Young Sheldon?
No.
His hair looks like the brother on Young Sheldon.
Okay.
Like, he doesn't normally look like him, but he looks just like Georgie Cooper.
Okay.
And I just couldn't help but picture him doing like this country bumpkin accent.
I wasn't faced with that.
Well, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
A couple other bit parts I think I really enjoyed. Is it Leguizamo? John Leguizamo?
The mechanic from John Wick?
I know him as Sid from Ice Age, but sure.
He's the mechanic from John Wick.
Or Sid from Ice Age. He was great as Eumaeus, the blind shepherd. I thought he was really great. For an actor that I see more as like a comedy character actor these days, he brought a lot of gravitas to the role, and I really appreciated him as kind of part of the framing device. I really enjoyed Himesh Patel as Eurylochus. That was the kind of second in command of Odysseus's trip. I talked about it earlier. I think Lupita Nyong'o was great as Helen of Troy and...
the twin.
Yes.
I mean, you really don't see her as Helen of Troy.
Well, yeah, she's there.
No, you see her, but she's essentially the twin.
Yeah, well, the Helen is the one who gets all the screen time. The other one just gets the 2 seconds where she stabs Agamemnon. Clytemnestra, that's it. I liked her a lot as both of those.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a cool thing to make her kind of scarred by the war
I
physically.
thought Josh Brolin's, maybe she could sell 500 ships.
John Bernthal.
John Bernthal.
Josh Brolin's Thanos.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of Thanos instead of the Punisher.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with names.
You're fine.
As if you couldn't tell.
He was one that I did not love in the movie.
Well,
I didn't dislike him. I just was like, man, what is this guy doing here?
I don't think so because all the other language is so modern. I don't think it was too out of place.
No.
He definitely showed up having that, Walking Dead kind of
It was
attitude.
weird,
but
yeah. It makes sense for a Spartan, I guess, but I don't know. It took me out of the movie a little bit. Probably more than any other major role.
It didn't. I can see why, but it didn't for me because everything else kind of just naturally fell out of place with the modern dialogue.
Zendaya didn't really click to me as Athena until we got that revelation of her having been the priest that was killed in the Trojan siege, and that's why she's manifesting herself to Matt Damon as Zendaya, or why his PTSD is manifesting her that way.
I took Zendaya's role as Athena less literal as Athena herself, because when she died, of course, she was the priestess of Athena. She was decapitated whenever the statue of Athena was decapitated.
Great performance from Zendaya in that scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that the Athena we saw was more Odysseus's
I agree.
conscience versus actual Athena. It could have been, pushed by Athena or whatever, but I don't think that was literally Athena.
It's an interestingly agnostic movie about the gods because you can almost interpret the gods as not being present in the movie.
Well, so that is an interesting take. I want to push back on that a little bit because we have the Cyclops.
Yes.
We have Calypso. We have Circe.
There's clear supernatural elements.
I think because the main one of them, there was almost two main themes. You had the core of the film being war's cost on humanity, what the actual weight of war is, and the effect it has on the person, on the soul. But then you also have the original version of the Odyssey being, hey, you have to rely on the gods because the Zeus's law was so
I agree.
repeated so often
Yeah.
throughout it. I think it was very much rooted in religion.
I agree. I'm not saying you should interpret the movie that way, but I think Nolan leaves the door open to interpret it that way if you want to.
It's almost like in Wake Up Dead Man.
I was going to point to that too.
Yeah.
You can choose to agree with Benoit Blanc, or you can choose to agree with Josh O'Connor, whose name I cannot remember right now in the movie. In both interpretations work, and I think
Yes.
that's true here too. Although there are supernatural elements, and we see a god, it's never explicit enough
Yeah.
that it's all the way there. So I think, were there any other performances you wanted to hit on? I guess Matt Damon. We never really
So
fully had our
there's
debate there.
that kind of goes along with the dialogue. There was a couple lines he delivered. One was right before they went to the Sirens, sailed across the Sirens, when he was talking to the Oracle in Hell, of your men won't be able to if anybody hears the Sirens call, and he was like I'll put wax in their ears. And it's just like, okay, I get he's tired, but I was like, some of that dialogue, just delivery it just fell flat for me.
That's fair.
But then you have the other side, like the scene in Troy, where it should be like this monumental victory. He hammered the performance of being, this sucks.
Yeah.
You see women and getting killed, the Greeks burning down the houses, and so it's funny how, in one point, I feel like Matt Damon's performance was a little bit flat, and then other times it was dynamic. I don't know how much of that is the fault of the dialogue versus how sometimes maybe they shot the 14th version of that 3-minute clip because the IMAX was,
I get that, yeah. I do think you're right. The script doesn't do really any of the actors that many favors. I don't think it's going to be up for best screenplay. I think there's too much weird, clunky lines. For me, Matt Damon's performance was great. I think it was as close to perfect as that script could have commanded. But I understand where you're coming from. I think the flatness, and we talked about this on the way home from the movie, I think the flatness is intended. I think that you experience that level of trauma and guilt, you're just not going to emote the way a normal person would. All right, well, I think we've pretty much hit most of our major points. One more thing I'll just throw out as we approach the end here. Ludwig Göransson is the person who did the score. I had thought it was Hans Zimmer when we were watching. Ludwig Göransson, he of Sinners fame, and I thought it was a great score.
Yeah.
I really don't have any problems with it.
It's you hear more of the instruments itself versus like a main theme.
I agree. It's almost more like, I don't know if you've
It's
seen
more
a lot-
complementary than you know,
Have you
having
seen
a
a lot
spotlight
of,
on it.
Have you seen a lot of like Nine Inch Nails scores?
Yes.
It reminds me a little bit of their work. It's
Right.
more atmospheric than score based. Okay, well, let's go ahead and wrap up here.
Yeah.
So, Braden, why don't you give your final thoughts and then I'll do mine.
So the movie is not perfect. I think, especially in today's age where everything is so extreme, it's either this was the best creation of all time or this was a pile of garbage. It was far from either of those, but I would say it was further from the pile of garbage. I walked away thinking it was a great movie. Not perfect, not one that I would want to watch every single weekend for the rest of my life, but absolutely one that I want to see again and was happy with seeing in the theater.
I think it was a very impressive delivery from Christopher Nolan to take such a fragmented story and turn it into something with a really singular thematic thrust. A couple of really powerhouse performances really take it across the finish line, plus some great special effects. I think it's missing a little bit in the camera work. I think the script lets it down a little bit. And I think a lot of the problems that are present in every Nolan movie are present here. On the whole, however, I think I would give it a must-watch once.
I would give it a must-watch once as well. I was debating between that and must-watch twice.
That's reasonable.
And I think if I ever have a debate against one versus the other, I have to default to the lower.
I think so.
But it was a solid movie.
It was
definitely
very solid.
watch it in theater or watch it at some point.
Someone cooked here.
Any closing thoughts, Braden?
Yes. Drink water at home so you can get a soda at the theater. That's how they make their money.
Though.
He doesn't, but it would be like when I watched the 1997.